Oh,
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you've all had good weeks so far. Think we may be waiting on a couple more people, so we'll give it a couple minutes. Just so you know, we're going to be recording this for anybody who's not attending. So please feel free to turn your cameras off if you don't want to be recorded. That's not a problem at all. And we'll get going in about a minute. I'm just going to set up my screen to share. Right. I hope that works, and you can see it.
yeah, we can see it.
Great, thank you. Cool. Waiting on two more people. I'll give it a minute and then we'll get going. They won't miss too much at the beginning if they do join a bit later. Um, yeah. And apologies as well for my video. I don't know how to rearrange my room so I don't have a halo. That's not intentional, but I can't work out anywhere else to do it. So let's get going then. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Nick. I am the manager of the Christmas case management team. Also here are Katie and Daisy from the Christmas team that you may already know from other meetings. They're going to be here just if you have any questions that I can't answer that are about Christmas and not specifically about Christmas case management team. But in the meantime, yeah, they'll just be on camera or camera in the background. So yeah, this is our volunteer briefing. First things first, thank you so much for putting yourself forward for this volunteer opportunity. We're so grateful. It's the first time that we've had a CCMT specific volunteer at Christmas, so I'm really excited. I think there's lots of interesting things we can do. We've had lots of thoughts about ways that you might be able to support, and we're also super open to any ideas that you have. But yeah, this is our team. There's myself, the team manager, Tom Prenderville. There is another Tom, so we do have to specify who's our team leader. You may or may not see him because he's going to be going on paternity leave halfway through Christmas. We also have Hazel, who is the head of London-wide services. She will be based at the London-wide provision. We have two psychologists within our team. Firstly, Liza, who is specifically working with CCMT, my team, and then Kim, who splits her time with my team and Katie's team at Christmas. They're both intending to be on site, so you might see them. Currently we have 4 case managers. So that's Alex, Sydney, Francesca, and Francis, who I couldn't find a picture for. So he is James Bond silhouette. And Minta, who recently joined us as our team administrator. We have 3 more case managers joining us. Saffron, who is an external person. And then 2 who, if you've been to Crisis, you might have seen the Crisis at Christmas before, but Tom Carter and Declan. They'll be joining us next week, but I'm very confident they're going to be ready to get straight into it when we come to Christmas. So that's us. Wanted to put our faces up because you'll see us around, and there are hundreds of people, volunteers, members, other staff. So hopefully this is a little bit helpful just to be able to pick us out from the crowd. But we will properly introduce ourselves in person when we see you. Great. So first, I wanted to talk a little bit about CCMT, what we do. I think you might have had some of this context as well, but hopefully this is helpful. So we are a team of lead case workers. We're going to be supporting up to 150 guests at the hotel across 3 sites. So that is the Limehouse Women's-led provision. We'll have 2 case managers there, Sydney, a women's case manager, and Francesca. We'll be working with approximately 40 members there. There are 41 bed spaces, but some of those people might come not needing our support, we're anticipating. We'll also be at the Aldgate Extension Hotel. The rest of the case managers will be based there, and we'll be working with up to approximately 77 people. And the Marylebone project, we also have, I'm not sure if you're aware of, but we're going to be using it this year and bridging approximately 10 members there and they will also be supported by my team. They'll kind of be coming under Crisis at Christmas, but they won't have the full Crisis at Christmas experience because they'll be within that hostel. But it's a really good opportunity. It's a women's only provision and supported accommodation project. So it's a perfect thing for certain people that will be referred in. So that doesn't add up to 150, but that is my team's total capacity. We have some members we're still working with from previous Christmases. And, you know, there's a little bit of flexibility about we might be able to take some more if we're needed. We will be working, I don't want to jump ahead, I think I might have said this later, but we'll also be working at Aldgate with some other teams who'll be doing the support alongside us. So 77 isn't the full group of people at the Aldgate Hotel, but that's how many Christmas case management team we'll be working with. And what we do, essentially, during Christmas, we support our guests focusing, because of the very short time frame, into sourcing accommodation. But we also work with them for up to a year afterwards as they need us. Again, still primarily focusing on sourcing accommodation, but doing many other things for them, such as linking them in with various support services, listed some there: health services, social work, drug and alcohol teams, support teams, immigration support. We'll also, you know, something anyone in the industry will be doing, be monitoring safeguarding concerns, reporting to social authorities, such as local social work teams. Didn't close that bracket, but that's okay. Yeah, so as I was mentioning, we're not going to be working everyone at the hotel. Some of those at the Aldgate Hotel will be worked on by Simongo's teams. They are two teams who are going to be supporting those members. They've got the NSNO team who'll be coming in and doing the interventions for the 4-week period. They also have some follow-on accommodation afterwards, and they may be able to continue support for people afterwards. We also have the Navigator team, which are a team from Simongo's who do long-term support for people that have been rough sleeping for quite a period of time. And we're not going to interrupt the great work that they've been doing with them, and they will come on site and continue that support, keep that consistency. There will also be some members who come into the hotels who already have a crisis lead work. We do loads of work throughout the year. Many teams across 3 skylights in London who provide that support. And again, to provide that continuity of care, they'll be continuing to support them while they're at the hotels. Yeah, fantastic. So I thought as well, it might be a little bit helpful for you guys to know what a member's journey will look like while we're at Crisis at Christmas. So this is the very short version of the month. So yes, firstly, a guest will be allocated to an available case manager when they come in. Ideally, we aim to do that within 1 day of their arrival. We are working most days, Monday through Friday, except the bank holidays. We'll also be there on some choice weekends as well, just to be there as much as we possibly can be. The guest and their case manager will then meet and complete an ICF. So we try and do this as everybody. This is our initial contact form. It's kind of like a brief assessment. They'll already have a lot of information that we know from them from their referral, and we don't want them to have to continue to explain to us their circumstances. That can be re-traumatizing. So gets a little bit of details about the current circumstances, cause for homelessness, any support needs they might have, things that we need to know to be best support them, and know what next steps will be. And then within this meeting, of course, we'll try and consider the best routes out of homelessness for them, that we can pursue. What is available to them? What would they most be looking for? Giving them a little bit of information about suspected timeframes for those kind of things. They can kind of weigh up what's the right thing for them. The guest and the case manager then would always try and preempt who they may need to contact on their behalf. We do signed consent for everyone. We do a single signed consent for each organization that we might need to contact. So we do continually get more signed consent as we go, as new things we become aware of. And then the case manager will begin to reach out to referrers, local housing options teams, any relevant services might be appropriate in order to help them achieve the desired outcome, landlords, all kind of different options. I think as well, this is really useful, important to know, because when you're interacting with members, some people will be quite concerned about the end of the hotel, what might happen to them. And it's really important that we kind of iterate from the very offset that we can't guarantee that there'll be an accommodation outcome by the end of the hotels. It's just not achievable for everyone that comes in over that time period. But as I've said, what we will do is continue that support onwards. So they'll still have people working on their case and helping them to resolve their situation as best we can. We are transparent with this from the offset, so people being referred in should be aware, but that doesn't prevent people's trepidation and concern, because of course, it's a big worry for a lot of people. Yeah, so we want to avoid making promises, essentially. What is good news, though, is that from our statistics from previous years, we found that although some people will return to rough sleeping, the number of people that rough sleep and are seen by services decreases at both the 3-month and the 6-month intervals after the hotel that are working with CCMT. So hopefully that kind of identifies a little bit of the efficacy of the support we can offer. And although it's not necessarily an immediate resolution, stick with it and we can get there. Yes, so now moving on to support that I am hoping that you guys will be able to provide. As I've said, I've kind of broken this down into some very broad sections. But yeah, as any of you who've experienced the hotels before will kind of attest to, they're super busy, super hectic environments. And there's always something to do. If you think of our case managers, they are potentially picking up 20 people in 2 to 4 week period. So there's a lot for them to learn about the new members, and a lot of conflicting things they need to do, a lot of responsibilities. So a large part of what we're asking you to do is really helping us to minimize that time that case managers are spending on tasks, actions, and work that isn't going to directly result in somebody resolving that homelessness. So they can really focus their time as much as possible within that short time frame. And your support will be invaluable to achieve this. Yeah, broken down some of the support we've suggested into broad categories, but I guess that's really the underpinning support we're looking for across everything I've written. So firstly, I'm just going to move my cat one moment. Sorry, I'm so sorry about that. She sits next to me the entire day, and then as soon as I go on camera, she jumps up. She's very yeah, she loves to be on camera. But anyway, yeah, cool. Supporting members to attend meetings with their case managers is really, really helpful. So examples of this is we might be providing the reminders for meetings to call or text, maybe heading to the room to collect members who are identified as needing support for remembering meetings. But also something is really, really important is supporting to triage members who present at our offices. Something about where we're based at Aldgate specifically, less so at Limehouse, but we're right on the ground floor, right next to the communal area. So that's brilliant. It's a boon and a bane, isn't it? It's that anybody can come to us very easily. They know where we are. We're very accessible. But that does mean that we're very accessible. People can come into the office. It's a small space, so everyone's attention is taken on that person. So what we're thinking is, last year as well, specifically, we struggled a little bit with it. People coming in and out of the office. It also has issues potentially with confidentiality. So having a colleague, a volunteer, post on the door who can check in with the member what they need, and then they can triage them to the right person. That might be a volunteer in the main space at the Christmas service. It might be a caseworker in our team or one of the St Mungo's teams. It might be something that isn't for the case manager and it isn't really important to be done now. And it can be a note of it taken and then passed on to the case manager to deal with when they have capacity. So that's one of the huge tasks we're really looking forward for help with. And then also there's some casework support that we think. So there's a bit more casework orientated support. Firstly, as I mentioned before, obtaining consent for members using our consent forms. If the case manager needs something to do a referral form, printing it out and then asking you to find them and sign it, save them so much time. That means they can get on with something else. Supporting to complete referral forms for various services. examples I put here as supported accommodation referrals, other support services. There are so many referral forms and they're all slightly different, but ultimately, if you've done them before in your personal lives or in professional lives, they're all much of a muchness. They're asking the same things. And much of that information will have obtained from the ICF, from conversations with the members, which will be marked on our system, or it might be having a conversation with the member and asking them specifically if there's anything that's come up that we actually haven't spoken to them about already. Another suggestion we've come up with as well is supporting members to make phone calls to the benefits office to book GP appointments. If anybody's ever had to call Universal Credit, you can be on the line for a really long time. And although you're not necessarily going to be doing nothing while you're sat there listening for a case manager to the green sleeves or whatever is on the Universal Credit phone line, it is distracting. So that's really, really helpful if somebody can sit with a member and talk it through and do that with them. Often it's just calling them up to report changing circumstances, something like that. But there, yeah, various reasons we need to call them. And then also supporting our members to do PRS, which is private rented sector searches. We use lots of different websites, Spare Room, DSS Rents. There's plenty more that we'll let you know of when we get there, but that's also super time consuming and can be really valuable. If we get the opportunity to do that, send some messages off to some landlords that are renting out rooms, empowering and sometimes upskilling the members to be able to do it themselves. We have computers on site, so once they know how to do it, if they haven't had the experience before, it can be something they're spending a lot of their time on and can be really, really helpful. Yeah, so those are some ideas of support we're looking for. I hope that kind of meets your expectations. And then also, have also mentioned, I think it's worth saying, of course, that in your interactions with the members, they might disclose concerning information they haven't said to anybody before. If that occurs, we'd obviously hope that you're listening, but then also making the member aware that anything raised you need to discuss with a case manager. It might be that they feel more comfortable speaking to you. They've not had that much time with the case manager. It's just come up. So I think things to be looking out for are safeguarding concerns. Lots of them, they fit under physical abuse, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, psychological or emotional abuse, financial or material abuse, discriminatory abuse, and organizational or institutional abuse. We do end up doing quite a lot of safeguarding alerts of people that we learn things that are happening to them. It's not as much of a concern from a safeguarding alert if it's not present currently, but still need to make reports where there is ongoing risk. Also modern slavery concerns. We had a few people specifically last year who we became aware that they had been victims of modern slavery. That's really important because firstly, they're at risk, so we can help them to risk manage, but also there's an entire pathway for people that have had that experience and they can get safe accommodation relatively quickly as well. So often that will happen before the end of the hotels. That's a bit more difficult to pass what might be. So I think any thoughts that you might have that I think something like that might have happened, just let the case manager know. But some big red flags are things like employer holding the passport for somebody, somebody doing cash in hand work, not on its own a red flag, but if they're withholding pay or anything else sounds concerning. And again, similarly for work with accommodation included, sometimes totally legitimate, sometimes it's it's a red flag and that they're using that as a way to in case somebody, keep them held somewhere. Well, you might find that somebody's had that experience or people are offered that experience when we're working with them and they've seen somebody on the street and they've spoken to them about that. That happens, not a lot, but it happens. And again, also most of those on site, they'll be dealt with by volunteers, but you might hear from a member about something that happened off site that we would still want to record, like them being attacked or anything else that is of concern. So that's less of something to do, but more of something that will likely come up when you're meeting with people. Great. I think that is everything that I had envisioned to talk about. So I just wanted to say firstly, thank you for your interest and your support for us. I put my email there if you want to contact me about anything. We've also got now lots of time for questions. And I also thought as well, questions for you. This isn't necessarily something you need to let me know now, but um, you've got my email now, so we could definitely email me or feel free to say it now. But if there's anything that I've discussed about potential tasks that you'd feel uncomfortable with, anything that you think you would need a bit more advice and support with, we will of course provide. This is just a whistle stop tour, but when we get to it, we'll give you more advice and support. Um, or is there anything that you've personally identified that you think that you'd like to support us with that might be a benefit? I'm more than happy to chat through anything about that. But yeah, cool. Some questions. Thank you. Um, great. Sorry. Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah, thanks, Nick. Thank you for that. I've just got a couple of questions. Sorry. So I'm normally in the shift office, which obviously gives us particular access to the shift book and or C-log and everything else. And I appreciate that obviously it's slightly different with the ICF and the contact forms and everything else, but you were talking about incidents and things that we should be knowledgeable about. Is this something that we would also have knowledge of? So will we still have access to sort of what's happened will we liaise with the green badges to know what's happened with the day? Will that be useful to pass on to the caseworkers? I couldn't really get a sense of what the interaction between the various different teams are, because I've in the last 5 years I've volunteered at Docklands and Aldgate, and sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect between St Mungo's, not particularly you guys, but particularly St Mungo's, and this is not a criticism, it's just an observation. And as somebody that works in communications, it's something that I'm probably a little bit attuned to. And I just wondered how you're going to manage that. Is there some sort of central reporting system, or do you want us all to work together? And then I'll be quiet. Sorry. Thank you.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, firstly, great. You've got so much experience. That's awesome. And I think we are going to be using C-log for incident reporting. So you've got lots of experience with it, I'm sure. So anything that happens to any of our members will receive an email, anyone in our team. So we'll have the oversight of that. Yeah, so that's whoever reports it, whether it be one of us or one of the volunteers. And we'll also be doing our recording on the same system for incidents. We do have a separate casework system that we'll be using for some members once they've done ICF. That's maps that we use year round. But yeah, incidents and everything like that will be recorded on C-log. So that will be accessible to everyone. Yeah. Does that answer everything that you asked? Yes. I think as well, you mentioned the interactions with the other teams. Yeah. And what I'm intending, I haven't done in previous years, but I'm intending this year to attend some of the morning stand-ups, just to make sure that I hear if there's anything that isn't on the system that we should be aware of, and I can share as well anything that we want people to be aware of in a more formalized way, rather than grabbing people when it happens. Great.
It's just really useful. Sorry, and thank you, Katie, for that. That's interesting as well, and that's a really good amendment, I think, to the system. It's just really useful because if there is an incident, it's useful to have some background information, and I think that sometimes it's there's a little bit of a kind of disconnect with that. But
that's yes. That's a really, really good point, especially as we're going to be doing a lot of our work on a different system. I think what we'll make sure we do is any risk concerns is put onto the main system. But yeah, I think you're right that if we're having conversations with people and recording on our main system, it's not necessarily then going to translate to C-log. So we'll have to just make sure that we're thinking ahead, and anything that might be a trigger or anything that might become something is recorded on C-log too.
Thank you. I've actually got another question, but I will wait in case anybody's got another question. Dominate the. I don't know if anybody else.
I've got a question that's related, because I used to volunteer at the Lancaster Gate Hotel, which is obviously not operational this year. And one thing I found which was quite helpful was the team briefings for the general volunteers in the morning, or sort of like the key volunteer pre-meeting, because then you find out about any incidents that happened overnight, or the handover between the shift teams. But I think is the CCMT shift starting at 9, so actually there's a sort of disconnect between when the groups start. So I don't know whether is it worthwhile someone coming on earlier to do a handover with the previous team, or probably not. I don't know, just a thought, because I just thought those handovers are sometimes quite enlightening if something happened overnight, so it's not just, you know, text on C-log.
Yeah. No, that's a fantastic question. I think that our thought process for not doing that and having that disconnect was, it gives us time to get to grips with what's going on, and we can let you know what's relevant. Because I think that within those meetings, you're going to learn about the entire hotel. Was actually who we're focusing on CCMT is roughly under half at the Aldgate specifically. So there'll be a lot of superfluous information that is maybe not best use of your time. But we'll make sure that we have a little handover at the beginning of our sessions for anything that's relevant with our members. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Yeah,
cool.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sorry, I've got another question. I was going to say, one of the things that we sometimes have done in the past is to summarise and then send to the more pertinent people the information that's quite relevant, it's quite useful. But that wasn't my question. My question was, again, sorry, it was about and I think there is some sort of training on on form filling in private rental sector. And I've been very fortunate in my life that I've never had to use, can't remember what you said before, sorry, the forms, credit, universal credit. So so I don't have a huge understanding of that, but and I wasn't sure whether will there be some sort of advice on, in terms of, I mean, from what I know, it's a slight vicious circle in terms of getting accommodation if you don't have a position, if you don't have a permanent address, if you don't have a job. So I just wondered if there was going to be some sort of background advice on that in terms of protocol for the and it makes me sound like I really don't know, and I'm not being that naive. I don't know entirely the things that I should possibly know, and will there be some sort of briefing sheet? Because I would hate to give out advice that wasn't relevant and or useful to people just because of my own naivety.
No, that's again a great question. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, we do have some internal learning documents that we can share that we've obviously used for our teams, so that's really, really helpful. But I guess the team won't be like asking you to support with anything that is requires too much prior knowledge. So I think things like with the universal credit, we'd already have identified that this person is eligible, and your task might be then to support them to do the application, and the form filling is relatively straightforward. But there is so many people who's going to be there to support. So if there is anything that doesn't quite make sense, that's great. It's a learning opportunity to come and speak to the case manager or to myself or Tom. We're often around just waiting for someone to ask us something. That's the most of our goal, the most of our role at Christmas, being there as a sounding board. So yeah, we're there for that. But yeah, we have documents, so I'll make sure they're shared. Cool. Great. Maya?
Hi, I usually work in the as an advice, support, and I'm happy to do this role, but I feel like I have lots of kind of like knowledge, and I've been doing like the applications and the sort of accommodation stuff for years. So I don't know whether I should try and also book on to some advice shifts, because I don't want to just feel like I'm doing administrative activities and not actually using my skill set very much. If people, if it would be helpful.
Great. I mean, I think Katie or Daisy might want to jump in on that, but I guess you're from our perspective as well. I think having that knowledge is super, super valuable. And yeah, you've got that experience, but I guess we wouldn't want somebody to have lots of advice from different people. It really helps for it to be streamlined. So if the case manager has that, so yeah, it seems like a lot of your knowledge and experience would be great in that role as well. But I don't know if Katie or Daisy want to say something.
Maya, I'll email you after this, but right now we've only really got availability on Christmas Day for the advice volunteer position. But I'll email you afterwards.
That's fine. I don't have to do it. I'm not like desperate to do an advice shift. I just don't know whether it's like the best. If I've been doing advice for like the last couple of years, so I just don't know if I'm in the right place.
It's a tricky one this year because we're really lucky to have CCMT at 2 hotels, and they're taking on the entire group of women, or like most of the group of women at Limehouse, and then half with St Mungo's at Aldgate. And because we've lost the Hyde Park Hotel, we kind of don't have a volunteer advice service anywhere other than Docklands. So what we used to look like 3 or 4 hotels of volunteer advice service is now 1 hotel of a volunteer advice service and 2 with a casework team in. So I think it will be really interesting to see how this model works and how you guys are able to support Nick administratively, but if there are skills and working within your competencies, as long as you're communicating that with the caseworkers and not kind of giving any advice before chatting something through with them first, that might be something that's really valuable. But just in terms of shifts, it's a lot lower on advice this year, I'm afraid.
No, it's fine. I'm happy to help wherever you think it will be most useful. But I just wanted to ask another thing while I'm on here is when setting all of this up, I feel like a little bit inundated with different trainings going on and like different live trainings like this, and then the training on the platform. And if I'm not doing advice and doing this role, do I need to go to all the trainings?
I can tell you, I was going to say at the end all the trainings that are left over. So in terms of for this role, we've got the DWP training next week, which is from 7 till 8, and they're going to do everything in terms of like benefits and applying for benefits, which will be really useful, especially in terms of like filling out forms. And then the other one is just with C-Log, which is on the 13th of December, which is on a Saturday from 10:30 through to 12. And you might have received some emails because I did just book everyone onto the shift so that they get reminders about them coming up.
Okay, and sorry, just one more point, because Sarah was asking about up-to-date information. I just remember last year when I was working with St Mungo's, I can't remember her name. She was one of like the lead sort of caseworkers. She had printed out loads of kind of like crib sheets on all sorts of housing, private sector and social benefits, drug and alcohol advice, just like a few printouts that were really helpful for like up to date brand new advice. And I'm sure she'll produce one of those again, and it was invaluable last year.
That's
so I don't
all
know
on our intranet. So all of the crib sheets that Rachel did last year is all
Great.
on our Wikimus, which has got the kind of
Oh,
advice
great.
manual, how to apply for universal credit, all the little guides. So
Great.
yeah.
Thank you.
You guys, I can give you all access as well to Wikimus, so you can have a look in the advice portal, because we have actually written quite a bit about doing like advice on providing, sorry, I'm trying to think of the words, on how to apply for like universal credit for PIP and how to fill out a referral form as well, which will be quite useful.
I guess the only thing with this role is like in the same way that you check in with the advice manager if you're doing an advice role in a different centre, make sure you're checking with CCMT so that there's no cross wires with what's happening.
Cool.